It's the Center Fantasy Football Podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Yes! Yes! Yes, this is my favorite part of the game.
Analyzing all of the league matchups week to week.
You can't win!
Get him a body bag! Finish him!
It is a bit above average.
I said this sucks, and basically so do you.
And discussing the boom, bust, and hidden gem players throughout the league.
We ain't found shit!
What the hell is Brett Favre doing here?
I'm in town to play the Dolphins, you dumbass.
Dan Marino should die of gonorrhea and rot in hell. Laces out.
Touchdown!
And here's your host,
Allow myself to introduce myself.
David Harbacken.
Hello and welcome to the Center Fantasy Football Podcast, the review show for Week 2. I guess we're responding to pressure from Twitter or the Facebook. Joining me on the program, of course, is the winning coach this week of the Hackettstown Hagglers, Mr. Gazelutsky.
I join every week, except my mood is different when we win. I will note that.
I do notice a marked difference in your demeanor this week. All right, so we're gonna try to do a review show, and then we're gonna do a preview show of the next week, since our fan is calling for it. He thinks that they're too long.
Yeah, we're responding to, let me just say this. In an age of social media backlash, we're like held to no higher standards than anyone else. We're responding to pressure from our one viewer. So now we have to change the format of the whole show because one person doesn't like that it's too long, apparently. I don't know if that. This is like courtesy to the league, all right? Nobody else even bothers to show up. Maybe once a year, maybe. Somebody makes a... Now, you know what? We're in danger of running overtime. Let's just get to it.
Yeah, we got to be quick. Go through this lightning fast. Which brings me to the Lightning Rods. Let's start with that game since I vaguely mentioned his name. All right, the Lightning Rods once again puts up a pretty good performance, but once again loses to another team that kind of blows him out. I'm starting to feel bad for him with his 0-2 record, and I don't think it's that deserved. But St. Louis Blues end up winning this game 157.44 to 130.66. The original projection was for the Lightning Rods to win 129.66 to 119.73, but that didn't happen. So looking at the Lightning Rods, he got 20 points from Tom Brady, 11.4 from Julio Jones, who quieted down from the week before, Juju Smith-Schuster with 31.10, 16 from Tevin Coleman with the Freeman injury, Lamar Miller only had 9, 4 from Jack Doyle, and Robinson got 18.3 on Monday night. His kicker got 7, and the Los Angeles Rams defense got 13, but leading the St. Louis Blues, Phillip Rivers with 28.74 points. Another good performance from him. This one against Buffalo, so not that unexpected. And then really what did it for him was just massive performances from his receivers. First of all, the 29.9 from A.J. Green on the Thursday night game, and 35.9 from Stephon Diggs in that tie against Green Bay. David Johnson, a tremendous disappointment, getting only 6.10 points on a horrific Arizona Cardinals team. And Thompson for Washington, though, 22.30 points, still pretty good there. And Disley, who we just picked up, got 13.2, although that was really on a touchdown. He had 3 receptions for 42 yards, but that touchdown kind of saved him there at the end. 5.3 for Dion Lewis, 14 for Gould, and only 2 for the New England defense. All right, what are your thoughts on this game?
All right. So Tom Brady once again does his usual thing. Julio Jones a little bit disappointing. Juju Smith had a pretty good game for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I was pretty surprised that we got that many points. Miller sucked. Tevin Cohen was okay, even though Devontae Freeman was injured. Jack Doyle.
You can actually. You actually can.
Hey, I'm just trying to keep up with pressure from the fan, okay? Al Robinson got a lot more points than I thought he would. Tucker with the Baltimore game, I didn't really think that was a great matchup. But yeah, definitely taking more points. And the Rams, they were pretty much all right. All right, let's put it aside while we still have time. How's our clock? All right. Whew. I wanted to save myself some more time, so I rushed through the first half. Whew, okay. All right, Phillip Rivers. Had a decent game. It was the Buffalo Bills, so come on now. Stephon Diggs had a 75-yard touchdown bomb. I'm sure Lombardi will look at his chop for that one. A.J. Green had 3 touchdowns in the first freaking quarter. Lombardi just had a spectacular week. I mean, he had what Nick had basically in week 1. And David Johnson, surprisingly, actually not surprisingly, his main weakness. I mean, if you're still riding the David Johnson hype train from 2016, I mean, yeah, you gotta take your beer goggles off. There's no team around him. Everybody this. David Johnson is like, there's no team. First of all, you're injured all year and you hold out. Okay, you're David Johnson. You're injured all year. You're demanding more money. This is why he demanded more money, because he knew that they were going to suck. And there's no line, nobody to throw to except for Larry Fitzgerald. Nobody to throw him the ball except for Sam Bradford, which is a joke. My cat could do a better job than Sam Bradford. I mean, you might as well just start the rookie at this point. That team is a disaster. 34-0. Okay? Chris Thompson saved his ass. This is the problem with the NFL right now. I'm going to touch on this later in the podcast. Chris Johnson, 13 catches for 92. I mean, I saw the game. It was all like 1-yard dump balls. This is what the league has become for the running back position. 1-yard Disley dump balls. Just you get your touches. All right? Disley was the beneficiary of that touchdown. I mean, it could have been Brandon Marshall. They were standing literally right next to each other holding hands. It was either or to get the ball. Actually, Nick needed that score. Lewis is all right, but Tennessee is questionable. But then you had Gould with 14 points, and, of course, the New England defense. So, pretty impressive performance as Nick was the beneficiary. Or I'm sorry, Nick. He was Nick this week. And beneficiary of all the super-duper scoring from the players. Must be nice, as I barely ever crack 100. All right, back to you.
All right, well, what about your thoughts on the Lightning Rods team here? Now dropping to 0-2, but frankly, 0-2 after 2 pretty good performances from him. I mean, what does he got to be thinking right now?
Well, he's got to be thinking that he snaked it. I mean, he could easily be 2-0. I mean, he gets steamrolled by the Nicky Baby steam train. So, by the way, Nicky Baby conveniently not on after an L. After he dominated the podcast in week 1 with 170 points. Now, this week, he catches an L, and all of a sudden it's, look at the time. Sorry, can't make
Yeah, well, I guess. I guess that gives us an opportunity to talk about Nicky Baby's game. So let's move to that one. As you mentioned, Nicky Baby takes an L, 131 to 123. He was originally projected to win 127 to 122 against Nick and Jamie, but that didn't happen. Only 18 points from Aaron Rodgers this week. Cooper Kupp with 12, 8.4 for Brandon Marshall, who he picked up. Gurley's still getting his numbers, 32.30, 19 for Elliott, so that's really the bulk of his team. But then Cook back down to earth with 8.9, 4.2 for Kittle, 8 for McManus, and 12 for his Dallas defense. For Nick and Jamie, 34 from Cam Newton, 18 from Golden Tate, 21 from T.Y. Hilton. Kareem Hunt finally showed up again with 15 points, not barn-burning numbers, but still pretty good. James White got 15.4 points, and that's without any touchdowns, so that's pretty good for James White. Gronkowski with only 3.5 points. Jimmy Graham actually showed up as well, 15.5 points, 9 points for the kicker, and -2, which almost cost him for the Kansas City defense. So, yeah, what do you think about this game?
Well, I see what Nick and Jamie are trying to do here. They're trying to just tread water until all of their suspended people came back, but they're doing pretty good for just trying to tread water at 2-0. So this game was pretty good. T.Y. Hilton, there was a big controversy about Andrew Luck coming back, but Hilton is becoming the beneficiary of all his passes. So kicked me for not picking up T.Y. Hilton. Tate and that Detroit offense, I mean, they're such a horrible team. They're always throwing the ball. Looking good there. Cam Newton showing up with 34 points is nice. I mean, this is the year of the quarterback. 38 is actually pretty low compared to some of the nonsense that we've seen. Also, Mr. Lowe for Listener Hunt there. He had 45 points in week 1 last year. I mean, he's really cooled off a lot, but you're right. He finally showed up. James White, always consistent. I offered them a trade for Gronk, and they were like, go F yourself. And, this week he didn't really pay off, but he is Brady's main target. But now they've got Josh Brown.
I mean, Gordon.
Josh Brown, Josh whoever. Now they got Josh Gordon. Looks like, actually, that could affect the Edelman comeback surprise, which might be why they bid it on Jerron Brown. We'll touch on that later on as well. You're right, there was finally a Jimmy Graham sighting. I mean, the Chiefs have no defense. You just drop them right now. It's going to be a shootout every single year. And Nicky, baby, tale of 2 weeks. We're high-flying with 170. We can't get him off the show. We couldn't shut him up last week. And this week, you're nowhere to be found. What a shocker.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers would say comes back down to earth. He's not going to have that miracle performance every single freaking time. Actually, almost had one if it weren't for the bungling idiot kicker was ended up dropping. And Cooper Kupp was all right. Brandon Marshall, interesting. He was open in the end zone. I mean, Nick actually could have won this game in the last minute. I'm sure he'd be on the podcast had he done that.
Yeah, actually, we were watching this game, and we were texting with Nick at the time, and we're like, well, if they all they have to do is recover an onside kick and throw a Hail Mary to Brandon Marshall, and you'll win. But it didn't happen, obviously. I mean, that Seattle team just looks terrible also. So, I don't know. I mean, this is more like the kind of performance I expected from Nick. He also didn't really get anything on the bench. Sterling Shepard with only 5.4 points, 7 from Cobb this week, who had, what did he have last week? It was something ridiculous, 29.2. Murray with 1.9. I mean, Dalton actually did much better for him than did Aaron Rodgers. And he's also carrying Tyrod Taylor. Pettis was somebody that we thought would, with the Goodwin injury, he had the potential to do something, but he really didn't do anything. 4.5 points for him. Yeah, I mean, this is more like the Nick team I expected. I mean, I guess had he played Dalton, he would have won. But, I mean, are you really going to play Dalton over Aaron Rodgers? No. So, you can't really fault him for this loss. I mean, I guess, no, there was nothing. Nah, I don't think there was anything he could do here. He played his kind of best lineup. I mean, maybe he could have switched out somebody for Kittle, like Cobb for Kittle, but, I mean, he still would have lost. Yeah, and like you said with Nick and Jamie, I mean, I really think that, they were playing the treading water kind of game for the first, they were like, all right, well, we'll just do what we can. I mean, their entire bench is suspended or out or, injured or whatever it is. So they really just, I mean, if they were able to do anything before those guys came back, they were going to be a good team going forward. But now they're 2-0 without even those players. So, I mean, watch out for this Nick and Jamie team because they could be really good when Wentz comes back, when Edelman comes back, when Jones comes back. Who cares about Prescott and Parker? But, those three guys can really, make this an even better team that's already 2-0. So, I mean, they have to be feeling really good in Nick and Jamie land.
One last note. When your running back rushes for 42 yards, like mine always does, because he sucks, he usually doesn't end up with 32 freaking points. That's the difference in the auction that you paid for with Todd Gurley.
Yeah. 3 rush touchdowns, 42 rushing yards, and 2 2-point conversions. Yeah. I mean, he really do that much. 42 rushing yards. He almost had as many points as he did yards, yet still gets 32.
Put that for the rest of the league. When your jobber running back, which I have 2 of them, rushes for 42 yards, you're usually going to get like 8 points. Not this guy.
Nope. All right, well, I think that's it for that game. Anything else? Any other thoughts on that game?
No, we have to move along. I mean, we're pressed for time.
Oh, yes, we're very pressed for time. So what game do you want to go to next? We want to do, let's do the rivalry game. Make Oddwin great again versus, I'm still calling him Millennials, even though he's calling himself Fitzmagic and doesn't even have Fitzmagic on his team. So this was a blowout. Last year, these two teams were terrible this year. They were both 0-1 going into this game, and the Millennials certainly outperformed Dr. Hockey's team, who is almost like the Arizona Cardinals at this point. Yeah, they're just bad. So, all right. Final score 157.34 to 115.82. Hockey had a lead. He just needed Rosas to come out and hold off the onslaught of, I think it was, what was it? It was Howard, Wilson, and
Beckham and the Chicago defense.
And the Chicago defense, which ironically, I have to say, I mean, he didn't have a chance, being that it was 157, but it was the Chicago defense that really did it, because Russell Wilson was not good in that game. I mean, he ended up getting a touchdown towards the end, which at least boosted his numbers a little bit, but he was not good. Beckham only had 9.1 points, so, I mean, let's go through it. 19.7 for Wilson, 9.1 for Beckham. Thalian got 31, which it seems like every receiver over at Minnesota is getting that right now. Jordan Howard with only 9.8, 9.7 for Ajayi. Kelsey showed up once, he after his terrible performance in week 1. This week it's 29.90. I think Eugene offered him, what was it, Gates? Like Devonta Freeman for Kelsey.
I don't even get me started on this guy.
Yeah, I know. And then Aguilar gets 23 points. He's having a good season so far. And then 8 for Lutz. And then the Chicago defense looks legit. 17 points for them. For Dr. Hockey's team, I mean, Breeze only gets 21 points, which normally is fine, but not in this league this year with these ridiculous performances from these quarterbacks. Larry Fitzgerald, 5.8. I think he went out with a hamstring injury halfway through. Devontae Adams, the other half of the McCaffrey trade, ends up getting 20.4 points, so he's been solid. Royce Freeman, the lesser of the committee over there in Denver, gets only 8.8. T.Y. Yeldon, the $121 man, only gets 9.10 points, and it looks like he might be injured now. I think Hockey even dropped him. 16.9 for Hooper, 16.2 for Anua. Rosas gets 7 points, and the Los Angeles Chargers defense gets 10 points against the woeful Buffalo Bills, who had a guy retire at halftime. He left Cole on the bench with 24 points, and like I said, Lindsey got 12.1 instead of Freeman, so that would have added a couple points, but never made it close. Millennials has a pretty good bench. I mean, Cohen only got 3.5 points, but, Funches 4.7, 12.4 for Pryor. I mean, it's all right there. But, I don't know. Your thoughts on this game?
Well, due to pressure from the viewer, I'm tempted to cover 2 games at once, but you're right. Maybe that's a little bit extreme. We'll just cover 1 game at a time. All right, going back to this game. I mean, Millennials had another Nick-like performance. I'm surprised he went on the podcast trash talking.
He was invited. I was surprised. He has a new girlfriend, I think, that's really controlling everything that he does right now, and it's also Yom Kippur for him, or for her. So I'm sure he's been dragged. Yeah, I know. So he's been dragged along as well. So thankfully, I enjoyed a bacon cheeseburger and didn't realize it was Yom Kippur, so I just said screw it. So yeah, but go ahead.
All you guys do to get the ladies is just score 157 and they throw themselves at you? Is that how it works?
I guess so.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, Russell Wilson was under siege all night long. I'm shocked that he finished with 19 points. He was sacked like 6 times, fumbled. It was a disaster, but he still got 19. Breeze with 21 again. I mean, that's hockey savior at this point. That allows him to hit the century mark. And the rest of his team is, and Devontae Adams, magic. Take away those 2 guys, and he's in trouble. Like Hooper, that's amazing that he got 16 points. I don't really see that guy ever cracking double digits, and Chelsea finally blew it up. Jay Ajayi and Jordan Howard. This combo meal here that I think he had Jordan Howard last year. Millennials love themselves some Jordan Howard. Luckily, he's playing Dr. Hockey. I don't know if that's, as Lombardi jargon would say, high-end RB1 material. Like you said, the Minnesota receivers, they just Diggs and Thielen, these guys, doesn't matter which one you have, they all bust above 30 points. Beckham, a little bit surprising there at 9.10. I don't know if you would agree. Well, then again, it is the Giants, but still, I think he's a victim of the Saquon Barkley 1-yard dump-off trend that's happening in the league. It's killing the rest of the team. What do you feel about that one?
Well, I absolutely agree with it. I mean, like that Giants game. I mean, I was able to watch like the first quarter, and then I had to go off and play hockey. But yeah, no, it was like they were forcing it to Saquon, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we cover Tillett Trey's game. But yeah, I mean, if I'm Beckham, I'm like, what is going on? You know, like, do you remember me on this team? I mean, what was it? Sterling Shepard only had 5 points or something. They're like just forcing it to Saquon, and everybody else on that Giants team is just not doing anything. Plus, their defense is terrible.
Yeah. So I advise the league, go out there and find yourself the new 1-yard dump off RB, and you will dominate at the RB position. Ridiculous. All right. Other than that, Dr. Hockey, let's start on his side first a little bit. Leonard Fournette is out with a hamstring issue, and the team, they Godwin great again, falls apart. Apparently. Because we talked to Hockey a couple times. Once this guy comes back, he's saying that he's right back in the mix. I don't know what kind of mix he's talking about. I think he's a little mixed up, because just like the Hackettstown Hagglers, we barely snip 100. I mean, 115.82, probably because of Rosa, actually. Saved his time on Monday night. I mean, Hockey has some work to do. I don't think his problem is Fournette being out. I think the problem is that he spent $121 on a man who wasn't even bid on. I think he's a madman. I think we should start with that. Saying madman. And then his mad scientist approach is not really, it's kind of backfiring a little bit. Larry Fitzgerald, unfortunately, I think he stopped at halftime like that Buffalo Bills player who retired at half. I mean, they were getting creamed 34-0. I would have stopped. I would have grabbed my hamstring. His body wasn't even hurt. He grabbed his hamstring. So you take Fitzgerald out of the formula, and I don't know what hockey's going to be. You better hope Rosas plays offense. They give themselves down around the goal line, because this team is screwed. Millennials at 1-1, I mean, 157 points is amazing.
Yeah, but I think, but all right. So obviously the Millennials, Aguilar's actually been good both weeks. I mean, what did he get? He got what did he get the first week? He got 13.5. All right, so but still totally acceptable. But I mean, this is 3 players. It's Thielen, it's Kelsey, and it's Aguilar. And if Kelsey has a terrible week like he did last week, with you see the difference. I don't think Russell Wilson is what he was before. So he's really, I mean, like you said, both of these teams are weak at running back. I mean, at least Hockey will, I guess, get his savior Fournette back at some point. I don't know how much that's going to do for him, but that's what he thinks. I don't know. Obviously, Hockey's in trouble. He has the 0-2 record, and he has this team. For the Millennials, I question whether or not this is sustainable or not. I don't think it is. I mean, we'll see next week, but is he going to get these kind of performances? I mean, but also he should have a better performance from Beckham, I would think. I don't know. I'm actually kind of curious to see what direction this team goes in. But he has some problems, actually.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that he has some problems. I mean...
And it's tough to say that on a week where he got 157. But, I mean, look, we saw what happened with Nick. He got 170, and then next week, right back down to earth. So...
Yeah, he would have been fine this week against, I mean, really, basically, anyway, what did he get down? He had the high score, like by .10, was sitting second place. Both him and Lombardi got 157.
Yeah.
You can't knock him this week. He had a very explosive week.
But I actually think but I think if you look at the two teams, I actually think Lombardi's team is better overall, like sustainably, than this Millennials team right now.
I mean, it's fine. You got to give him a tip I had to Millennials. 157 points. Good job in your win.
Yeah, all right. Okay, well, I guess we can move to the Tilla-Trey game since we were talking about Saquon Barkley so much. I say the Tilla-Trey team because even though my team was there, we sucked. So I have a lot to say about this game. First of all, my record falls to 2-5 all time against Tilla-Trey, which is kind of painful. For some reason, he always beats me. I just don't get it. But he did. I mean, one of the big blows for my team this week was Zerline going down with an injury. My kicker going down with an injury in the first quarter. I mean, didn't even have a chance to kick. Bopping his banana on the sideline. I don't even know how this happened. It's ridiculous. There was no reports of it, no anything. I mean, I was just screwed. And as I mentioned the week before, I mean, a lot of my team was built around the defense and the kicker, and when the kicker goes down, that sucks. And the defense didn't do that well either. Only 5 points from them. I mean, I should have probably played Hogan, but I mean, after the first week, I didn't know, and he was going against a difficult team in Jacksonville. But that still wouldn't have gotten me the win once the kicker went down. I mean, the only thing that could have really actually given me the win was Matt Ryan against Carolina, rather than Garoppolo against Detroit. But I figured Detroit just had such a terrible game and is constantly throwing the ball that he would do much better than Matt Ryan, who had a terrible game against Philly the week before. So let's get a little bit into the numbers. 20 points for Garoppolo, 44 for Roethlisberger, which is just insane. But I mean, I guess that Kansas City defense scores a lot, but they also give up a lot. There's just no defense that seems to be going on there. Teddy Ginn, very disappointing, 7.5 points. Mike Evans with 22.3 points on that juggernaut of a team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with Fitzmagic on it. Will Fuller comes back and gets 25.3 points, which is good. Marvin Jones, actually, this was a key for Tillett in this game. Marvin Jones got a touchdown towards the end because before that touchdown I think we had like a 20-something point lead, which could have been maybe we felt like we could have held them off, but once he cut that, I think he cut the lead down to like 3 or something. Following that, I mean, I'm not doing the math correctly there, but I mean, it was a. I didn't see the play, but it was a. I mean, how many yards did he have on that? I don't even know. Either way, after that Marvin Jones touchdown, it just changed the dynamic of the game, and then it left us with Cole Beasley versus Saquon Barkley in the final game with trying to hold on to a 3-point lead, and Beasley didn't do anything. Barkley, as you said, 14 receptions, 80 receiving yards, and 28 rush yards, which is good enough for 24.8. So yeah, that really hurt us. Carlos Hyde got 12 points with 1 rushing TD, 43 rushing yards, and a reception. So Gordon for us got 30 and 19 for Connor, totally respectable. 14 for Rudolph, 9.5 for Reed. Burkhead didn't do anything, but neither did Beasley. And as I mentioned, my kicker was out, but he had Matt Bryant going for 8 points and 5 points for the Philadelphia defense, which was really the difference. Amari Cooper, who was on his bench, got 21 points this week, whereas last week we know that Tillett needed that one catch. And at this point, if that would have happened, he would have been 2-0. So he's got to just be shaking his head and going, thinking that he could be a 2-0 team and Nick and Jamie could be the 1-1. But, tides reversed, and he's sitting at 1-1 pretty well at this point. I don't know how sustainable the Roethlisberger performance will be when he's not playing Kansas City. I think he has some problems on this team, but I certainly think my team has some problems. We tried to address a lot of that in free agency this week in the waiver wires, but I don't know. What do you think?
First of all, I think Tillett has the Mike Evans problem that the Haggles had in 2015. Like, he drops everything. He couldn't get 1 point, right? So you bench him out of anger, then he gets 21. That's Mike Evans syndrome. I can Tillett know that right away. You're going to have that problem all season. You play him, he doesn't do shit, and then you put him on the bench, he has 21 points. Just to warn you about that danger. Hazard to quote the podcast last week. Congratulations when he said, straight to my team, as a defense, well, he was actually right, because he didn't have his kicker, his defense is good job. But, when these guys don't show up, our back is in trouble. Of course, you got sandbagged by Greg Zuerlein. There's nothing you could have done about that. You're chilling 1 minute, and Dave goes to me, why are they going for 2? It's the first quarter. What's going on over here? And he's like, ding! Why is this questionable showing up on my phone? Ding! Like, oh, no. Oh, no. What's going on here? What a sinking feeling. That sucks. That ends up being pretty much the difference. Last week he had 16 points, right? Although it doesn't win you the game, it certainly gets you a lot closer.
He had 17 points last week.
Yeah, you would have still lost by a point, but that brings us to our second point, the Saquon Barkley trend. I watched the Giants game. At one point, Manning was under pressure, and he threw it all the way back across the field to Barkley, who's falling out of bounds. Now, for a 1 yard long. Now, certainly there could have been somebody else open on that play, I'm sure. You have a loaded offense, quote unquote, with Beckham and Shepard and the tight end, Evan Ingram, but I'm telling you, they're using him the wrong way. If they just run the normal offense and then sprinkle him in for big plays, it's fine. They're forcing him the ball, and it's ruining the Giants team, but Kimmel's smiling ear to ear. He was averaging a point a minute in the game up to 1 point. It was ridiculous. All right, Carlos, hi. He sucks monkey ball, but who cares when you have Saquon Barkley? Evans is just riding that Fitzpatrick train. Rex Burkhead, I kind of question that move, and the 2.2 points kind of validates that. I don't know what's going on with that. I suspect Deshaun Jackson is going to be shoved into the lineup with his ridiculous points. Other than that, it was a pretty even matchup. I just think that you got sneak bit with your kicker, that's all.
And it wouldn't be the first time. That happened to me in the championship game last year. So, just like it happened then, my team is very Zuerlein reliant, and when he's gone, it really hurts us. Which you wouldn't think would be a problem. You would think that your kicker could remain non-injured, but apparently not. So, that's quite frustrating, but frustrating ain't even the goddamn word for it, but what are you going to do? Good win for Tillett, and a bad loss for me. All right. We might as well address the game containing our two fans, Eugene and Whalers.
I'm surprised you waited too long.
I know. Well, I want to keep them interested. I know. All right, so 136 to 107. Looks like we're out of time. I think we got to... No, all right. Looking at this game, Dave's Secret Crush moves to 2-0 with a 136.10 to 107.6 victory over the Whalers. 133 to 132 was the projection, but it ended up being nowhere near that. 42 points 42.5 actually for Kirk Cousins, 20.4 for Trubisky. Clearly outmatched there. Michael Thomas got his 30.9 points, and 12.7 for Keenan Allen. For the Whalers, 15.7 for Antonio Brown, which is really disappointing for him, and then 3.7 for Stills. McCaffrey, the traded McCaffrey, gets 27.9 points and only 9.7 for Mixon, who went out with an injury. Kamara with a pedestrian for him, 7.9 points and 2.4 for Chris Carson on Eugene's team. Antonio Gates, who he was shopping around to the entire league and nobody was biting, which, most people try to sell high, but he tried to sell him at rock bottom for gigantic costs. 0 points. But Tyler Eifert only got 4.3. Clam Crowder, who I don't even think is on the team anymore for Eugene, is 5.7 points. And then 20.9 for Galladay, as everybody, it seems, on that Detroit team is getting some points. 10 for Prater, 6 for Butker, 4 for the Denver defense, and 9 for the Jets defense. Eugene is now 2-0 and Whalers is 0-2. That's how it should be, but I think both of these teams have problems, shockingly enough. I think Whalers has way more problems than does Eugene, but Eugene does have some things that he needs to address. But I don't know. Well, first let's talk about this game and your thoughts on it.
Well, we don't want the viewer to pull their sponsorship, so we better be careful. I'm not criticizing them. All right, so Eugene has been very, very busy this week offering Mahomes trades. I mean, I admire the hustle. I mean, this guy is trying to shaft the entire league. I'm sure all of you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure all of you have gotten your Shafto deal from Eugene.
Well, it wasn't only Mahomes. He tried to shop to the millennials. He tried to shop, I think it was Antonio Gates and Devonta Freeman for Kelsey. I know with me, he tried to shop Devonta Freeman for Le'Veon Bell. Who did he offer you for Mahomes?
I mean, Lombardi must be going into convulsions right now. He offered me a game. He wanted DeAndre Hopkins for Mahomes. I guess basically straight up. It made him throw in Antonio Gates instead. The computer made him do it.
It made him throw in Antonio Gates.
Yeah, so he wanted Burton and Hopkins for Gates. The problem, what kills most deals is when you're shopping an over-the-hill corpse of a tight end that got 0 points. I mean, that's not going to get anything going.
Well, I think that's part of the problem with Eugene. Like, it's just the unbelievable greed in these deals. I think if he offers something, because look, he has players to offer. He has, Breda just had 24.9 points. Marshawn Lynch, 14.9. Sammy Watkins just had 19.10. 16 from Goodwin on the bench. He's busy. All right, Freeman is injured, but he's busy, shopping around people that both got donuts. Maybe because of injury or whatever you want to say, but you're shopping them around for the best players on the other teams. Nobody's going to go for that. I don't care how desperate you are. And here's the thing. All right, I don't know if he... I think he made an offer to the Whalers, Mahomes, for maybe Kamara or something. And it's but then you're going to leave Whalers with no running back at that point. You can just throw in a Marshawn Lynch. Mahomes and Marshawn Lynch for Kamara. It's a 2-for-1 deal. He still walks out of there with a running back and a really good hot quarterback. It becomes more balanced. But once you're just oh yeah, I want your best player for this quarterback. Now Whalers might need it, but I'm just saying don't go for the Uber shaft and don't sell so low. Maybe go for a guy who had a good week at least. I was shopping around Hogan this week, even before the Josh Gordon deal, which freaking killed me because it just dropped his value to nothing. Even though I do think he actually will do. I think he'll actually do better with Gordon there because, last year with, what was it, Cooks over there? he was actually getting more targets because of it. So I think that it might actually help him because it's drawing the better coverage away. But nonetheless, I mean, I wasn't shopping him around, even though I wanted to after his 2-point performance. I was at least shopping him at the 19-point performance, and I was shopping him for. I was throwing in other people in the deal, and I was having, I was trying to not ask for their best player, just ask for a serviceable wide receiver. I think I made a deal, or I made an offer. Hogan, I forgot who else. Somebody else good for like Inua, like, I think, well, Anderson. I mean, which is not that. I mean, look, but it's not a complete shaft-o-matic. I mean, I got rejected on that too. I mean, nobody wants to trade. I think everybody's wary about trading in this league right now, and especially with Eugene.
Well, given the caliber of players in the dumpster, like it's a dumpster fire out there in free. But the waiver wire, there's nobody. It's pure manure right now. So you kind of want to hold on to who you have. I mean,
or you want to move somebody for some value back.
But you certainly don't want to get shafted in trying to make a fair trade. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Whalers is in a rush to get rid of Kamara. I mean, who had 43 points in week 1. He only had 17 this week, fine, but I mean, his team is like, it's flatlined. It's not even a pulse at 107. I mean, you're barely cracking 100. You surely don't want to ship off Kamara to build this Eugene super team. Or Antonio Gates. I know Gates is like a hot pick. Pickup right now at 0 points. I mean, but we'll see. So, I mean, hopefully everybody hit that reject button. Go ahead and smash that unlike button on YouTube right now. I mean, this guy's a greedy bastard. He's like to build a super team. Unbelievable. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, so, but I will say, so Eugene's team is just a couple pieces away from a super team, by the way, and I think that he could absolutely build it using Mahomes to leverage some really good players, but he's got to do it right. I think Whalers' team is just a few. I mean, it barely has a pulse at this point. It's like a few players away from the grave. I mean, yeah, I mean, this is a tale of two teams. I mean, look, first of all, there's no quarterback for him. I mean, Trubisky he's rolling with, and he's terrible, and there's nobody else available. His wide receiving core is awful. I mean, except for Galladay, I guess. His running backs, I mean, his running backs keep getting injured, first of all. I know we picked up Bernard, which I guess we'll talk about. I don't know which show we're going to talk about, the review or the preview show. I guess we'll talk about that in the preview show. But, yeah, I mean, he's got some problems to address. But so does Eugene. I mean, Eugene, he's very top-heavy. He's got 2 really good quarterbacks. He's got 2 good receivers. And then he's got McCaffrey, and then he falls off a cliff after that. So I don't know. But even with that, his bench still has some points to be able to put in there. So I mean, first of all, the first thing that he has to do is get rid of Crowder, which I think he did. And then there's pieces to put in around it, but it's just not going to be steamrolling super team that he's trying to get. Which he could, but, you got to move Mahomes in a fair deal, and he has plenty to bargain with, but doesn't want to do it.
The problem is people don't have to give away their firstborn for Mahomes because they can just go get Fitzpatrick right now. That's what I tried to explain to Eugene. Nobody's going to give you their whole team for Mahomes. I can just go. Apparently, no one even wants Fitzpatrick. You got him for $6.
I think I got him for $5. Nobody even bid on him, and that's the other. So I mean, clearly, which I think. Yeah, $5. I just put in I didn't even really want him. I put in a flyer. Like, I was like, all right, I'll just at least make this bidding have to be respectable, and I got it, and it was ridiculous. I was not expecting that at all. But Whalers, while he puts in $75 for Giovanni Bernard, who's only going to play a couple weeks, still is rolling with Trubisky, who he dropped and then had to re-pick up because there was nobody there. If he would have put $6, into Fitzpatrick, he could have had him. Could have rolled with Fitzpatrick and gotten Giovanni Bernard.
$75 for Bernard. I mean, Whalers proved like this is my guy. I want this guy bad. Not as bad as Dr. Hockey with Yeltsin, which is still unexplainable, but $75. But now you're rolling Giovanni Bernard and the off-injured Tyler Eifert. That's Bengals heavy, dicey situation right there for Whalers.
Yeah, well, plus it just seems like, well, all right, so Fournette went down, and Hockey goes out and gets, spends $121 on Yeldon, his backup, and then Mixon goes down, and Whalers spends $75 on Bernard. Like, these numbers that people are paying for the backups that are not even, we're not even talking about, like, the handcuffs for, like, superstar players. We're talking about the handcuffs for Joe Mixon and Leonard Fournette. Going for insane numbers. I mean, I think part of that is a product of how horrific the free agency pool is, but still, I mean, come on.
I think we have to note, like, a reminder to these teams, your funds don't refresh every week. You don't get a fresh 200 every week.
Yeah. All right. So, any other comments on this game, or these teams? All right.
Moving along on schedule.
Yeah, we gotta move this ship along. So let's move to the last game of the week, which is your game. The Hackettstown Hagglers come out with a 115.20 to 104.18 victory. Since it's your game, I'll let you go over this. Although I like the headline. Before you do, I do like the headline. Offensively challenged Hackettstown Haggler come back to defeat Black Ice Dynasty. But anyway, with that, I will let you take it away.
Yeah, interesting enough, like, LeVar Minor, he's one of those teams that's just always, it's like high game, low game, high game. I wasn't really too worried about this game because Minor was due for a low game, and at 104, boy, his auto draft can deliver a low performance this week. After, like, 140 plus last week. I mean, Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, there was a long touchdown bomb between them that saved the day for me. Otherwise, we'd be sub 100 as usual. Crabtree, who's gone right now, with you actually is on your team because you picked him up at Candace Sariad, 10 points on the Thursday game. Dalvin Cook grabs his hand. This is a new trend in the NFL. Grab your hamstring. I don't know if they don't want to play anymore or what's going on, but everybody has a hamstring injury. Adrian Peterson, after his dominant 22-point performance, will the real Adrian Peterson please show up? And he did, or not show up. So, I mean, that'd be like me trying to peddle Adrian Peterson around to the league right now. What Eugene's doing with Zeeks. All right? Burton actually he scored that touchdown early, and that's all he did, which is great. Emmanuel Sanders was battling it out with Miners, Demarius Thomas all game long. I mean, let's look at some Demarius Thomas numbers. 5 catches for 18 yards. Woo! Like you said, I think my cat can do that.
Well, how many targets did he have? He had a ridiculous amount of targets.
Yeah, so they threw it to him 11 times, and he caught 5 of them for a whooping 18 yards. I mean, why is he even on the team? Did he get paid? Is that a problem? Did he get a big contract like Diggs? I don't know. Usually that's what happens. So we picked up Parkett, and Houston is horrendous defensively, which I'm worried about with the Giants matchup. We'll talk about that later. Meanwhile, the auto-drafting swashbuckling Minor, this week Tyreek Hill cooled down considerably from his 40-point explosion. The 20 points, and we already talked about Demarius Thomas, who's horrendous. Alex Smith, Kenyon Drake was a good play because Bellagio was injured, and besides Frank Gore nibbling away the points, I mean, 17 for Drake was pretty solid. Alfred Morris is the head scratcher. I don't know if anybody would play him, but 10 points is generous for him. Zach Ertz, amazingly, had a clunker in week 1, but came up with 20 points in week 2, and now he's got Carson Wentz back. This could be a viable weapon. Jarvis Landry, it just seems like anybody on Cleveland is just whatever. I mean, he still got 11.9 points, and that was without Josh Gordon anyway, because he was injured with, guess what? Everybody's favorite hamstring injury. So even with that hamstring, he's got 11.9 points catches for 18 yards in the underperforming receiver department. Like you said, always stay away from Boswell, the Steelers kicker. That's a nightmare. And the Minnesota defense was in a wild shootout. But I think they play Buffalo this week, so he's going to be turning a lot better conveniently because he's playing you. How convenient.
How convenient.
And go off from the bench. I mean, his bench situation over here looks pretty pitiful for both teams, actually. It was an interesting game against Minor. I was sweating it out. Of course, we were losing going into the Monday night game like we do with every team. And we play defensive football once again, which nobody believes exists, but we are proof that it does exist.
Yeah, defensive fantasy football doesn't exist except for some reason it seems to with your team.
Yeah. And that's the wrap up on that.
All right, well, I guess that's going to wrap it up for the review show. I was thinking about whether or not we should put the waiver wire picks into the part 2, but we're already at 49 minutes, and our sponsors are just clamoring to get us off the air. I know. We're almost at 50 minutes. So I guess that's going to wrap up this portion of the show. Make sure to join us next time for the Center Fantasy Football preview show, which is coming up, immediately on the same network. I mean, but for you, it could be whenever you decide to put it in. But in the meantime, I'd like to thank my guest for this show, Mr. Gazelutsky.
Yep.
All right, and we'll see you. We'll see you next time. All right, goodbye, everybody.